much for this opportunity. I definitely am not anywhere near as knowledgeable as Nitinji, but we're just trying to put some of our thoughts together as a group. So this is all by the help of Sandhya Didi, Dhruvaji, Ramyaji, and the entire group. So we can start with the prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. To kind of pick up from where we left off last week, we covered Bhagavad Gita verse 5.25. Sorry, that's a typo. But basically, we went over how someone that is liberated is free from all defects, free from all doubts. They have complete self-control and they're engaged in the welfare of all beings. So last week, Ramyaji did a very comprehensive overview of this entire shloka. And then now we will continue with the next one, which is chapter 5, verse 26. Would anyone like to recite the shloka?
Yeah, Shri Ramyaji. You need to, yeah.
Yeah. Radhe. Oh, okay. Kamakrota viyuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. Thank you. Radhe.
Thank you. So for this verse, we got the translation from Gita Press, and it translates to those wise men who are free from lust and anger, who have subdued their mind and have realized God, Brahma, the abode of eternal peace is present all around.
I think, Shruti, we can take few more people for
Yes.
Recitation. I thought Rupaji had also raised hand for that. So
Yes.
Kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yata chetasam abhito brahmanirvanam vartate viditatmanam. Radhe everyone.
Thank you. I think Falguni raised her hand as well.
Yes, Falguni ji, Radhe.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. Kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yata cheshtasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate vidyatmanam. Radhe. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so now to kind of discuss the meaning of this verse. The first line, Kama Krodha Viyuktanam, means liberated from desire and anger. So first, to kind of understand where all of this comes from, it begins when we have ignorance, which is a critical defect of the mind. So when our mind is impure, we are not able to understand our true identity. And because of this, we identify with our body and our mind. When we do this, we don't realize that we can find happiness within by connecting with God. And so we feel that there's a deficiency or we're lacking in something. And this deficiency causes us to go out into the material world to try to seek happiness. So by doing that, we give rise to anger. Anytime we feel that we're lacking in something, it causes desire. And then through that desire, we end up getting more and more attached to the material world. We develop affinity to the unreal and perishable objects. And then if at any point there's an obstruction and we're not able to fulfill our desires, it leads to anger. So this is kind of how we experience anger, but someone that is truly liberated, they will not be able to experience desire or anger because they're situated in their self, they are connected with God. And so they, no matter where they are, they're always content and fulfilled. And so they don't have any desires anymore. And so because of that, they won't be able to experience anger. Nitinji, do you have any input?
No, I think you covered pretty much very well. So that's good. Yeah. Ignorance, it all starts with ignorance. I think we spoke about it in Bhagavad Gita. Right? The fundamental mistake that we do is identify ourselves with the body, and that's where the game begins. And it just keeps on compounding that mistake. And because of which we start identifying ourselves with our body and then with our mind, and then all the perishable things associated with that, we start desiring those things. And then it's just a matter of time before we feel frustrated because those temporary things or perishable things do not have the ability or the capacity to give the pleasure or the bliss or the joy that we are seeking, because we are much more deeper than that body mind complex, right? We are a soul. So that ignorance is the root cause or the culprit behind all of this. So yeah, I think you summed it up very well. Thanks, Shruti.
So the next part of the verse is yatinam yatachetasam. So those people that are self-realized, they are able to subdue their mind. And so because they cultivate the right knowledge in their intellect, they understand their true nature, they're able to renounce attachment to the unreal and transient objects of the world. So they're able to understand the difference between their true nature as the soul versus everything else that's in the world. And through this process, they're successfully able to subdue their mind. And so the next part of the verse is avito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. To those who have realized God, the abode of eternal peace is present all around. So generally for the conditioned souls like us, while we're going through our different activities, we're constantly established in our body. So every time that we have that identity of I or mine, so when we think my house, my children, my job, my belongings, my luxuries, we are identifying with that false identity and that ego. But for someone that's truly situated in God, they are able to go through everything in life, whatever activities that they're doing, and still always feel the presence of God. So when they're interacting with other people, they can see that God is seated within this person. They can see that even in the living and non-living, God is pervading. He's everywhere in this world, and that he's seated within me. And so this is kind of what differentiates us from those who are truly God realized and liberated, because even if they're doing the same activities as us, even if they're going through life the same way as us, they're able to constantly be in remembrance of God and united with God, unlike us, who maybe we do it kind of periodically throughout the day, but we're not actually situated in that realization. Nitinji, do you have any inputs?
No, you don't have to seek my input. I think and your homework. I think it's not Brahma, it's Brahman.
Yeah.
So Brahmaji is one, Brahman is another, and Brahm is another, right? So all three words are like pretty close to spelling. But yeah, this is nice. I mean, I was listening to a lecture where this very concept of Brahma Nirvanam is like where you see divinity. Now, how do you see divinity, right, in others? But the practice that for me, the practical takeaway from that was we can't see divinity, right? I mean, do you see God? And we can't see that. But the way to practice it is like if somebody makes you upset, it's like Krishna is seated within them and he's insinuating them or, providing a trigger to them to test you. So that is the way to look at it, even if somebody is troubling you at that point, right? Or there may be an iota on truth in it. So the two things are possible. Either you need to work on yourself because somebody is saying anything bad to you, or you say Krishna is pulling the trigger. So, that way you look at the cause and not the act. The cause behind that act could be divinity itself, right? I mean, I don't know, it's a pretty esoteric concept. But yeah, they look at divinity. The God realized people, they're able to see divinity in everything, right? And even when they close the door, they do it silently, gently, because God is present everywhere, right? God can manifest from a pillar also, like we saw in the case of Prahlad. So he's present in every atom of this universe. So there's nothing sentient or insentient where God is not. So they are able to perceive that, and that is why they find everything fine. For them, world is perfect the way it is. Okay, they don't find any kind of incoherence or, for that matter, any imperfection around. So God is seated within us. That is the cause who's giving us energy. God is seated within everybody as well. And I think the real test of it is the person who plays on your nerves, whom you hate the most. If you're able to perceive divinity in that person, I think that's a practice we can do. We all can subject ourselves to see how we are progressing on that. So yeah, that is one of the practical takeaways for me. It's very difficult to do that, but we can bring that knowledge to our head.
Thank you. Sandhya Didi, you
Yeah,
raised your hand.
actually I had like regarding this Brahma versus Brahman. I think I have also gotten confused many times in the past, and just clarifying it. So Brahman is the unmanifested form of God, right? Is that correct?
If
Yes.
you if you take Radharani out of Krishna, then it becomes Brahman.
Wow, I like that. And from there, actually, I wanted to just add one thing in connection with what Nitinji you said, right? Um, Seeing divinity in everyone. So, Radha and Krishna, I was watching a video today, which is, I think, becoming very popular from Vinay Varanasi. That's about Radharani's Leelas and Radharani's life stories. So, there was this point that Krishna will give you all kinds of situations. Some situations to burn your virtuous deeds like punyas, and some situations to burn your sins, the paps, and both become important. So, like that kind of relates with every action, every situation that is coming our way is actually to take us closer to God. So, if we try seeing it from that perspective, our acceptance attitude becomes better. Yeah.
Right, and even the Karam Yoga, if you think about it, the image on the left-hand side, where you say my house, my job, my children, my luxuries, right? So if we can see divinity in that as well, we can see, serving our family or our little one or our kids as serving God, right? That God has chosen to meet me like my son today, or like my spouse, or like my this relative, right? So this is the seva assigned to me. If we do it with that Bhagavad Bhav and not with a sense of attachment for my own self, that becomes Karma Yoga as well. That becomes seva as well, right? It's very simple concept. But because we think it's as our own and we are not able to think God is seated within them, that is where it becomes a binding karma. But only if you could trigger that and say, you know what, this is God has chosen to meet me in this form, and if I discharge my duty to the best of my ability and serve God through that, and you are serving your relationship, you are very much in household life, that becomes seva, that becomes spiritual at that point, right? So it's just about, that's what Krishna's message is. You see divinity in everything, not just limited to going to temple and you know seeing divinity in deity only. Pretty much everywhere divinity is there. And nothing is secular at that point. Everything can become devotional, right? Seva or devotion is not something that you do in temple only. It could be any act that you do throughout the day, as simple as an act as cooking as well, right? If you're keeping in mind that I have to give it to Krishna as bhog and then take it as a partake as his prasad, that becomes devotional as well. So everything can be devotional. Another point, I think, Sandhya, what I was listening, another thing I wanted to share, it was very practical concept. See, when somebody does anything bad to you, there are two kind of responses that can come. One is you feel, how dare, what kind of a person is he, right? That's a very de facto natural response we feel for that person. Okay, so if you do that, of course, you have accrued some binding karma around it. Okay, that is, I think we all understand that aspect. But if you, let's say, you pray for that person, say soul is untainted, all of our souls are pure. Soul doesn't do anything. Soul just inspires. It's the body mind identification that brings about the worst or best in us, right? So rather than cursing that person, if you can put a prayer out that God give that person wisdom to see things as they are, you will get tremendous benefit out of it. And there's a beautiful story. There was a guy, see, our punya and pap, they are like both, they go hand in hand, right? So it's not like if you do punya, it will neutralize your pap, or if you did pap, it neutralizes your punya. So punya will go as one bucket, pap will go as one bucket. So you have to take, bear your results of your sins, and then you enjoy the fruit of your punyas. Both are temporary. So there was a guy who had done a lot of punyas. So he was chosen to take into, Swarg. He was supposed to go to Swarg, heaven. But then they said, okay, let us show him. Yamraj thought, let us show him Nark to begin with, how it is, so that he's incentivized more and he can appreciate Swarg more. So he was taken to Nark. So when he saw Nark, the hellish, he was like, got disturbed, really disturbed, because it's very miserable existence there. And people were subjected to different kind of punishments and stuff like that. So when he saw that, he said, what can I do to alleviate their pain? Okay, he felt that because he was a very pious person. So Yamaraj said, one thing you can't do anything because everybody have their own karmas. But he said, I really want to do, I can't see them like this. He said, okay, one thing you can do is you can trade off. You can give all of your punyas to them, and that will take care of their current misery. He said, that's fine. I'll give all my punyas to them. And he said, but then you will have to suffer what they are. So he said, that's fine, but I will give all my punyas to them. So he gives all his punyas to them. And guess what happens? He doesn't go to Swarglok. Now God says, you know what? Because you gave it all back, now you go to Brahmalok. You got a promotion. So the point here is, when you even pray for people who do bad for you, what you get in return is many folds. Okay, that is how the universal laws work. So next time you come across somebody who has done something bad to you, rather than cursing them, which will anyway give you the same result, even if you're wronged for the wrong reason or right reason, but if you simply pray for them, then you will get much bigger benefit out of it. So that was kind of pretty interesting for me. All right, I'll
Oh, that was such a nice story. Sandhya Didi, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, actually, first of all, thank you, Nitin. It was a beautiful story, and a learning lesson for all of us. I actually was thinking of bringing that up, like what we discussed, Shruti, during our call. So, like this slide is talking about attachment, right? Which is a problem. Attachment in the material realm is a problem. So we were talking about it. What is actually the opposite of attachment? And I think we can have like some people say what do they think it is, and then we can just reveal, like in terms of its depth, what is exactly the opposite of attachment. Okay, Sri Ramya ji is saying detachment. I think that's an obvious one that we all tend to think. Can anyone think of like a deeper, a very beautiful, yeah. Oh, I see something coming from Manvita. Yeah, actually. Nitinji, you want to elaborate?
will say ditto. Okay, whatever Manvita.
Yeah, so that's such a beautiful thing, right? So it's not that we need not, like what Nitinji was saying. We need to associate with our family members, do whatever our duties are, but from the point of view of love, which is all about giving, not really attachment, and that makes a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, it's a seed. Think about it. It's kind of a opportunity or a privilege given to us by God in every lifetime. So either we can do karma, which can bind us further by playing ghar ghar, right? I don't know what do you call it in English, but or you can elevate yourself by making that activity spiritual, because that will not only serve us well in this life, but also serve us well in future lives as well if we come back as humans, because those relationships will anyway be there. But your sanskars have become solid now. You do it with a sense of responsibility, you do it with a sense of love, as opposed to you do it with a sense of they are mine, I hold them, and this should happen, right? So those sanskars will also help you in long run. So it's a win-win proposition if we do it with that mindset. So yeah.
I think
Falguni ji.
Falguni ji, yeah.
Yeah, I just can I share one small anecdote which I just read a few days back with respect to this, seeing divinity in all or accepting criticism and so on. So I just read this small anecdote where in the life of Ramana Maharshi. So, like when he, after his self-realization, enlightenment, there was one of his disciples came to him with some article which was handwritten, and the disciple was very very upset because some very not very good things were said about Ramana Maharshi, and he gave it to Swamiji and said, "Okay, look, see what they are writing about you. This is not fair," and so on. So Ramana Maharshi just took the article, he read it, then he asked for a pen, he corrected the article, made some corrections here and there, and gave it back. So the disciple was very surprised that they are criticized. I mean, they have pointed some, said not so very good things about you, and still you are just taking the article, reading it, and like improvising on it, and then giving it back. Aren't you like upset about it? So Raman Maharshi said no, and just that was his answer, and he just handed back that paper to the disciple. So this is a very, I mean, that of course can happen only when we are in, like, we are situated in that kind of a situation, but otherwise uh, we will be affected by criticism, but that is also because we are attached to a lot of things, we have desires, and so on, and that is also one thing which leads us to react in certain ways to certain situations. And so I just thought I'd share this small, yeah, thank you.
Beautiful. One more thing I wanted to say is, it's like if somebody starts abusing you in Hebrew, Hebrew. Okay, they start abusing you, the choicest of abuses, right? We know the Hindi abuses, but Hebrew, they do that. Would you come to know about it? You'll not come to know about it, right? But if they do it in your language, native tongue, then all of a sudden your body will start getting fired up, right? So the point is, when we can treat the abuses given in our own language like we would treat a Hebrew abuse, that's the real sign of growth or improvement kind of a deal. So we need to work towards that state. End of the day, it's only words, right? So if we are like that, then it's an opportunity to work on ourselves. And if we are not like that, what the person is saying, then why bother? So in either case, we should be able to maintain peace of mind. That is the key message. Madhu Chandaji wanted to say something.
Radhe Radhe everybody. So like just now Nitinji said and reminded me of one thing in my interactions with my child. Like when I would scold him, like I would do it in my mother tongue. So it is my mother tongue is Odia, and having stayed in Bangalore, we speak Odia only in our house, and he is not so adept in understanding the language. So he would just look at me and gape at me, and that would make me more angry that he's not reacting when I am scolding him, and he doesn't understand and he doesn't try to understand and all that. So after everything is over, and suddenly I will realize that I am not following any principle. Everything I have thrown away, whatever I have learned, that meditation, all the learnings, all the satsang, suddenly I will realize, and then I'll stop. Then after half an hour, when I say that, why you don't even change and all that, and he'll say, like, you are talking in Odia and I can't understand anything what you are saying anyway. So that suddenly, and many times it has happened. It is not that only once he said and I realized, but after many times I realized that, oh, this is how, like, I also need to learn that if something has not happened to me and I am not really what people say or what I have done, I have not done what people said, then why am I reacting like this? Is a, I mean, in certain situations of life, actually, where the general situation is there, but then sometimes we need to realize if we are in satsang and we are reading scriptures and all that, we realize that these are some situations where we can actually adopt certain certain things that we learn by accident in materialistic life also. And secondly, we were talking about this forgiving and all those things, love, unconditional love, and all that. Um, there have been many videos where I saw, and especially I'm listening to some clinical psychologists who are spiritually elevated. So what they are saying is every soul is pure. So anywhere you need to learn, that person will arrive with to you. So apologize if at all there is a difficult situation. Apologize and thank. Apologize and thank, and keep on doing that. And somewhere you will uh, arrive in this detachment or unconditional love and all that. And this tool is working for me. So wherever I feel that okay, I'm some bond is there where I'm reacting or there is some trigger, I am apologizing and I am thanking. I'm apologizing and I'm thanking. And also I'm doing it for ancestors also. So I feel somewhere that it is improving my state, mental state. Slowly, but happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Nitinji, your hand raised.
No, I think you had more slides, right? So I think you had a
Yes, thank you all. That was a very nice discussion. And then for this particular shloka, we looked at several different commentaries. So we looked at the Sadak Sanjeevani by Swami Ram Sukdas Ji, Bhagavad Gita as it is by Swami Prabhupada Ji, and also Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God by Swami Mukundanand Ji. And so we just kind of wanted to show the different perspectives that they all had. So in the first one, the main idea was to distinguish the self as separate from the unreal and to remove all traces of ego and individuality. So I think one beautiful point that was brought up is if we think that we're completely free from anger and desire, if we think that we're liberated, that means that we're actually not. There's still a little bit of ego left. And so until the point that we're truly able to remove all traces and we lose our sense of individuality, we won't be able to be established in Brahman. And then once we reach that state, we will be in that abode of eternal peace. So if you see God as, like we were saying, the unmanifest Brahman, then everywhere will be Brahman. So no matter what you're doing, you will experience that. And then in the Bhagavad Gita as it is, Swami Prabhupada Ji was saying that of all those striving for salvation, the devotee of the Lord is the best. And so when we're able to, through Karma Yoga, when we're able to uproot the desire for fruitive action, so we're not concerned about the results of our actions, and we're constantly engaged in devotional service. So no matter what we're doing, like what Nitinji was saying, when we're cooking or when we're doing our work or taking care of our family, if we can do that in God consciousness, then we'll attain liberation in the Supreme and always remain in that trance. So there was actually a very beautiful example that he mentioned, and it was by vision, by meditation, and by touch, only do the fish, the tortoise, and the birds maintain their offspring. Similarly, do I also, O Padmaja. So for example, like the turtle, it'll lay its eggs on the land and then it'll go back into the water. And it'll be thinking about its offspring while it's in the water, but it's away from it. So like that, even we can always be thinking about God no matter where we are. And through that, we'll be able to elevate our mind to that consciousness of God. And so no matter where we are, it becomes God's abode. And then lastly, in Swami Mukundananji's commentary, he mentioned that those who are eligible and truly detached from the world can dedicate themselves fully to the practice of spirituality. So this is a very small percentage of the population. And when they do that, they're able to completely turn their mind and thoughts inward and find the ocean of peace within. And so how are we able to really be able to liberate ourselves? So we do this through first purifying the mind, and this happens through karma yoga. So no matter where we are, whatever stage in life we are, whatever situation we're in, if we can follow our swadharma, but to do that in God consciousness, so we relate everything to God, slowly over time, we will be able to purify our mind. And then through that process, we will receive the right knowledge, and we will be able to understand the eternal essence. So this happens through Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasana. So when we hear this knowledge and then we contemplate on it, and then we internalize it. So this internalization process can also be considered Dhyana Yoga, which is what Sri Krishna will begin talking about in the subsequent verses. So up till now, he was talking about the qualities of those that are liberated. And so from the following verses that we'll cover from next week onwards, he'll talk about Dhyana Yoga. And then once you have that right knowledge, you'll be able to renounce your actions. So even if that doesn't mean necessarily that you're in action, but whatever you're doing, you're able to be able to not be attached to the outcomes and to do everything for God. So in that process, you lose your ego and you're able to surrender to the Lord. And then finally, you achieve liberation or experience eternal peace. And then for the practical utility of this, whenever we generally face any situations that are not to our liking or we think that is not what we want, it often can trigger anger. But even in the most opposing situations, if we really use the knowledge that we have and we try to use the power of our intellect, we can prevent anger from arising. So one way of doing that is through Nam Jap. So if you constantly take the name of God, in whatever name you choose, they all have the same power, and God is seated within his name. So he will help us be able to get rid of our anger. And then also what we eat, what we surround ourselves with. So, you know, what content we're consuming, the type of people that we interact with, the food that we're eating, all of these can agitate our mind and make us have more desires. So if we're more conscious about those, we'll be able to allow our mind to get purified. And then whenever in life we're dealing with a situation and we get different results, so whenever it's a desired result, so it's what we expect, if we can always remember that it was because of the grace of God and he's showing his love, then we'll be able to connect it back to him. And so that way we won't identify with the outcome. We won't think that it's our own doing. We'll see that all along God's hand was there. And then whenever we face opposing situations, we also can see that it's his grace. So we can kind of look at it in several different ways. You can think that it's God's will. He has a much bigger plan. And so at the end of the day, what he feels is best is what's best for us. Or we can think that he's trying to teach us a lesson and he wants us to become stronger and more tolerant. So we'll be able to grow through every challenge that we face. Or we can think that it's a part of our prarabdha karma, and through the process of dealing with the situation, we actually will be able to destroy some of our sins, which will help us in our process of growing spiritually. So that's actually all that I had for today. So we can open it up for a discussion. Yes, Sandhya Didi.
Yeah, should we first take Shri Ramya ji for? Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Radhe, Radhe, thank you so much for this and for everyone for your points. And I wanted to say that, Shruti, that this is one of the most simple and most elegant presentations I've ever found. It's almost covered everything so beautifully and in such a simple manner. It's very well presented and very inspiring. So thank you so much for summing it us up for us. Radhe, Radhe.
Thank you so much. It was all a combined effort. All of the group, it's all the notes that you guys put together that it's just this presentation.
Thank you.
I mean, I actually want to echo this. I think, Shruti, the presentation has a reflection of your personality. The simplicity that you carry within you is kind of there in this presentation as well. But at the same time, again, as you know, pointed out, it has belabored upon like very important points that we need to consistently ruminate upon. And that brings me to my question, like open question. So I think like looking at different commentaries, it appears that there are, of course, different ways which are suggested to get to that state of equanimity, experiencing peace within, right? But as I think most of us are on the path of bhakti yoga, practicing God consciousness is something that is, I think, that attracts us. And also, I think in Prabhupadaji's commentary, it was mentioned that that is the best way, right? So, and I would add in Kali-yuga. So, like my question was that can we simply practice remembrance of God and God consciousness in whatever we do, and eventually, as a result of it, we will automatically start developing that detachment from our false identity and start realizing, what is our true identity? Question one. And the second part is like, I have heard it in many contexts that ultimately we need to forget ourselves, like be so much absorbed in devotion that we are like, we don't even know about our existence, and we are just so much immersed in love for God, right? So that will also be eventually a consequence of practicing God consciousness, right? I mean, open question and any additions to this, yeah.
I think Nitinji would be the most qualified person to answer that.
No, I had raised it for something else. Question, Shirame, you want? No, I wanted to say very beautiful presentation, Shruti, and this practical utilities, right? Very simply stated, very nice. Then results, two outcomes, favorable. Then we acknowledge it as God's love. If it is not favorable, then we simply take it as God's grace. And it can manifest in three ways, right? Either you accept it as God's will, because God knows better than what is good for us, right? Even though it might be opposing, we cannot say what I know or what I think or what I want is better than what God knows is better for me, right? So we accept it. Or God is giving it as a test, and that will make us stronger and more tolerant. Or third is, it's part of your prarabdha. It is our own letter that we have written to ourselves. We are the authors of our own destiny. And if it is a prarabdha, then of course it is going to chip away our past karma, right? And then we accept it as God's grace. The beauty of that is that we draw more of it. When you accept it as God, when you oppose it in your mind, then again binding karma, you are putting it back, more into the ocean of your sanchit, future prarabdha. But when you accept it as God's grace, you draw more of it, and that can grow exponentially. So it's a very nice practical utility that you have given. So very beautifully stated. We'll come back to Sandhya's question, and then Shriram, I wanted to say something. So go ahead, Shriram. I don't know to hijack your time.
Sri Ramya ji lowered her hand, I guess. Yeah, Nitin ji, please go ahead.
What was the question? Let's have a discussion on that. What was the question? Remembrance of God, you said all the
Yeah,
time?
like I was just saying that, see, we need to also dissociate ourselves from our false identity. But can that be simply a consequence of practicing God consciousness?
Okay, so okay, my 2 cents on that. Let's think about it analytically. So when we say God consciousness means we are thinking about God, right? When we are thinking about God, even though we haven't seen God, let's say we are remembering Him or trying to relate to Him in some form or manner, whether we are cooking, whether we are studying, whether we are carrying out our work, then what will happen? Let's understand that. So what will happen is, no, anything that we think about in this world, anything, it can fall into these three categories only, right? Sattva, which is something pure, noble that you are thinking, then that will take on the color of sattva, white color. If you're thinking something, let's do it, enjoy, we're going to have this party, then it will take on the crimson color of Rajas. And if you are thinking something, okay, let's get, sleep or intoxicated and stuff like that, then you are taking the color of tamas, black color more. But when you're thinking about God, even though you haven't seen God, then what will happen? You are doing something which is nirgun. That means it's going to start taking off the colors of Maya. Triguni Maya, right? It starts taking that off. So taking that off means what? It's like whatever mud is there in the water is getting cleared. And when the mud gets cleared, you start seeing its bottom. So that means all the ignorance or the veil of ignorance that we have, it'll start getting removed. So you start getting purified. So the more God consciousness we build, the more purified we become. The more purified we become, the more our natural nature starts getting revealed, the nature of the soul, which is love for God. So it is a natural consequence of it, right? And your knowledge will also start. You don't have to acquire knowledge at that point. And the soul is already has the knowledge. So from within, your knowledge will also start getting revealed. And the more knowledge you start experiencing from within, the more your love for God will increase. So it becomes a reinforcing process. So simple process, you think about God, everything else will fall in place. You don't have to worry about anything at all, right? So that, I mean, at least technically that is how it's supposed to work. And that is where I think she has put it on the left hand side, Nam Jap at all times. Nam Jap is a good anchor, right? Because we can do it. It comes very naturally to us. After we learn alphabets or K, Kh, G or ABC, it's easy for us to recite something. And this is not an ordinary name, right? We are reciting the name of the God. So it is very easy for us. I mean, if you tell somebody to do meditation and think about God, it might be a little difficult for them if they have not practiced it for a while. But name is something you can do it just like that. And if you continue to do that, then the name, because God resides in his name as well, the form will start appearing. It's a matter of time. And when the form starts appearing, you will start entering the Leela. And when you enter the Leela, the Bhav will manifest. So this whole process will come all by itself. So name, this is a good practice actually, Naam Jap. But the condition is we need to strive towards Nirantarta. That means without break. It's practice. I mean, even I struggle with that. You need triggers and, periodically, but I think this is a good tool that you have called out, Shruti. So thanks for that. Yes, Sandhya, go ahead.
Yeah, wonderful logical explanation. And I think that is such a appealing logic, right? God is all pure and just think about him and you will get everything. Um, and like one thing that you just talked about, Naam Jap, again, a question. I think you did explain, but I still wanted to bring it a little bit more to get assurances in the practices. So many times, like especially when you are not there, at least I feel that emotional feeling and yearning for God is not there where I see from aspiring bhaktas, right? Like where they are. So that's of course an aspiration. And many times this practice like appears a little bit mechanical. So should you be constantly checking that whether it is coming emotionally or it's okay, even if, because it's also about like that neuronal connections which are getting built when we are constantly practicing repetitively, right? So
I don't know.
again,
I would like to hear from people, but the way I understand it is like, okay, if you are relying on your feelings and emotions, what if they don't come? Are you going to waste your entire human life? Right. I mean, my mood is not there, or my emotion is not coming, or today I don't feel like doing. What if it never comes? Then what do you do? Do you waste your entire human life? So you do mechanically. You continue to do mechanically and keep praying to God that I don't have the ability to inculcate those emotions. You only have to sit in my buddhi and make my heart melt, right? So that's the best we can do in that case, right? I would rather take charge than wait for my emotions and feelings to come. So at least that's how I see it. I think Pratusha wants to add. Go ahead, Pratusha.
And also, like, just one thing, it'll be helpful to be hopeful though, right? Like, it has to come, like, because I'm giving the charge to God, then He will make it come someday, right?
Yeah, I think we have to be hopeful, Ashavadi, optimist. If a devotee becomes pessimist, then that's what a tragedy at that point, right? Shruti, you're the moderator. You have to call out names.
Yes,
Radhe, Radhe.
Pratisha ji.
Hello, Shruti. Actually, I wanted to add on to what Nitin sir was saying about, whatever you're thinking about, that color you become, right? So when you're thinking about Nirgun, so what is the color that you're going to get yourself into? You know, that you have to think. You're thinking about the Nirgun, and what are your colors going to be when you are thinking about the Nirgun? So that's a very, very, very deep question that you have to ask yourself. Um, then about the ego, that I wanted to say was, like, right now, see, our phones are getting charged, whatever, laptop, everything, it's getting charged by one energy, right? And if you look at the screen, so many faces are there, right? So many identities are there. So you pick and choose who you like, and you can become that in your next birth. um, you know so that's how ego works. And if you only think about nirgun, and then you're backing away from all these identities, and you come into one area where you will not have any identities. Okay, and then at that point of time you can choose whoever you want to be. So that's what I would like to say. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you. Manuta ji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, regarding having emotional connect to God and how to improvise it, is like just my 2 cents of perspective is like in olden days, or our parents' time, when the marriages used to be like more of arranged marriages. Then the wife, when she gets married, it's completely it's like a stranger, almost like a stranger. We don't know actually who the couple is, but we commit to understand them, and be in their life, right? We the wife visualizes husband qualities and his love in the whole day or whatever occurs, right? Like they understand, they brings that knowledge, and then they be grateful for the love of the husband. And so that's how she develops that emotional connect with that person who once being completely stranger. Just after the marriage, she keeps on practicing that the same way, how she serves and sees love of her husband in everything. The same way we can do serve God in all of our activities, and feel grateful for all the God energy that is enabling us to do the good things. So by that gratitude and knowledge, being in the satsang might would help eventually stronger the emotional connect. That's just my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's such a beautiful point. And I think Preeti ji had her hand raised.
Preeti ji, we still have the same rule. You can't take your hand back. Preeti ji, yeah.
Yeah, so my personal experience is when I had extremely difficult situations where your loved ones that you think after marriage are supposed to be taking care of you, love you, and when they become very against you all the times, and then they talk in insultive voice constantly and make the house in a toxic environment. I didn't know how to help myself not feeling down or low. And after joining Bhagavad Gita, I realized that when I started, I have to get internally strong. My inner world, I need to get strength. So I started chanting more and more the name of God. And when I do that, I feel stronger within myself, and the outer environment that used to affect me so much that I used to go in depression has not been affecting me because the environment did not change for a long, long time. But after learning more about Bhagavad Gita, that's a big difference. I can see in myself that it has definitely shifted me in the right direction. So after a world that used to affect me so much, like, oh my God, because I didn't have these tools before. And now that I do, it's a big shift in me, which is a big deal. So just wanted to share my own thing, you know.
Thank you so much. Yeah, even for me recently, I've been trying to think of God's name more throughout the day, and I've found that it's been helping. So I think it really is a very powerful practice. I think Falguni ji has her hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one small question here, that Nama Japa, along with Nama Japa, like you do that the whole day, okay? Like remember God, remember the name of God, your Ishta Devata. But along with that, aren't we supposed to like do other things like karma yoga, plus give up our desires, plus some meditation and all that? Because I always thought, or my understanding was that everything goes together. It's not just one thing that will help. So that is like a little confusion in my mind. If you can help me to clarify it. Thank you.
Right. So yeah, I can answer that question. So yes, so your meditation, ekant sadhana, there is no substitute for that, right? That is a must do for all the sadhaks. That ekant sadhana that you do, sitting all by yourself, that you have to do. Now, Nam Japa is going to strengthen that practice for you as well, right? It's a supplement to that. Of course, meditation, there's no substitute for that. That you have to do. So Nam Japa helps where, it becomes part of your routine. It becomes part of your heartbeat. Okay, it takes a lot of practice to get there, but think of it when you are breathing, or let's say somebody wakes you up at night, and without even thinking, your practice is so much that that name, your Ishtadev, is reverberating in your heart. How nice that would be. And if that is happening, then everything that Karam Yog, as per that means that remembrance is there, so you're already doing Karam Yog, right? So these all things are related actually. They are not separate things if you think about it. And Nam Japa, that lays the foundation for it very nicely, because that is an anchor you can build fairly, relatively easily. You can do that anytime. And then the form and aspect is, when you do meditation, you can take it deeper. You can do kirtans, start thinking about the leelas, start bringing the image of God in mind, all the good things that you want to do. But doing that consistently throughout the day is not possible. And the practice of Karam Yoga, yes, of course, we have to do throughout the day, that whatever we do, we have to attribute it to God and have that consciousness. But Nam Japa is going to take you closer to all of these. You will start reaping the benefit in your meditation, as well as in your remembrance, and even the spirit of Karam Yoga, it will help in all. That is how I see that. And so I hope that answers. It's not different actually. Everything has its place and you have to do everything. But Nam Jap is something that you can do every time, every moment. It's just easy, with that, from that sense. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. Thank you, Ritinji.
Manvita had said something which was very interesting, that we don't have to know somebody to actually build relationship or get enamored or get interested in that, right? I mean, there's so many people who go for IAS exam, right? Have they, I mean, they might have seen an IAS officer, but they have not experienced how does it feel being an IAS, but the very concept of, cracking that exam and being in public administrative services fascinates them so much that they are willing to put in that hard work. And similarly, a girl, like Manvita was telling, right? She might be looking at a guy ogling back at him, say, what kind of a person he is, right? Looking at me like this shameless guy, until her friend tells, you know what, your parents are talking about getting you married to this guy, so he's the guy. And then all of a sudden her feelings will change. Oh my God, is the guy I'm going to get married to. So the same person, the feelings have changed. Why? Because now you are thinking, oh, he's somebody who could be mine or who is mine. And same thing used to happen in arranged marriage earlier, where you haven't even seen the person and then you get hooked onto that person because you have accepted them as mine, right? So same thing we can actually implement to God as well, because so many saints, so many scriptures are telling us he's your true well-wisher, he's your eternal relative, he's never he never leaves you. It's an eternal relationship that you have. So with that concept, we can, take that concept there as well and build that relationship. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I've heard, the beauty of Krishna is that you don't even necessarily have to. I mean, obviously, it's ideal to see him in a loving relationship, but he accepts anyone. So just the thought of him is enough. And then slowly over time, that'll develop into love. But even, for example, with Kansa, he was thinking of him from a completely negative perspective. But because he was constantly thinking of him, Krishna accepts him and he liberates him. So I think if we can just try to bring our mind to him slowly over time, those sentiments will naturally come, and that love will naturally come. But I think the first step is just trying to attach our mind to him.
Beautiful. I have a hard stop, so I'll have to go. But yeah, I really loved. Thank you, Shruti, for an amazing, wonderful presentation. And it's good to see so many familiar faces back and having this beautiful satsang. So thank you, Sandhya, for reinitiating it.
Thank you, Nitinji, for being you and being there. Like without your presence, nothing can
You guys are doing great,
happen.
so I try to make it as best as I can and possibly bring in some slides as well periodically. But thank you again. It's always good to be back into the satsang mode. Thank you. All right, Radhe Radhe from my side. I look forward to seeing you next week. So take care. Good night, good day.
Thank you, Nitinji.
And yeah, I guess because Nitinji is leaving, we should also plan on leaving. But I just wanted to say this, that like we are all discussing that how non-negotiable uh, daily meditation is supposed to be in our spiritual journey. So I think it's like the perfect time for us to, like, next session will be on Dhyan, where we are learning from Krishna how to do meditation. So I am really looking forward to that, and see you all then, right? And I mean, if there's any last concluding notes, Shruti, you have, then I think we can just.
No, yeah, that's all. Thank you all so much.
So okay, see you all next Sunday as per Central Time and Monday as per Indian timings. So Radhe Radhe. Thank you.